So by the time this show drops, the whole Writers Guild ATA next move will, of course, be in the news. So we're recording this on the eve of that actually happening, and we will see what happens. It'll be it's going to be a whole new Hollywood.
Yeah.
A whole new Hollywood. Yeah. I don't know what the end game is. I'm assuming it'll probably have to go to court, but we'll see where it goes. It's going to be crazy. Otherwise, Avengers Endgame coming out end of the month, 3 hours, 2 minutes long. What do you think about that, Tim?
That's too long. but on the heels of Captain Marvel, a perfectly fabulous movie, in which Miss Larson is going to be playing a major role, know, in Endgame. Yeah. I'm now looking forward to it because I'm so up on her. Yeah. I'm just it's so and I already like the trailer.
I like the trailer a lot.
Features her.
Apparently, they have been working very hard to put together trailers and teasers that reveal nothing because, like, every single second of those 3 hours and 2 minutes is all spoiler.
Yeah.
So they can't show you anything without revealing everything. But the Russo brothers made a very good point, which is this is the culmination of 22 other movies. Yeah. This has been what we've been waiting for a decade.
Yeah.
This all started with Iron Man, and it's all kind of been working to this point. That's a rather massive saga to bring to culmination. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad that they made. If it were only like 2 hours, I would be disappointed because I know there's not going to be any kind of satisfactory summation.
Well, you have to give all of these characters, something. A moment.
Well, that's why half of them died at the end of the last movie.
Well,
we can't.
There wouldn't be so many. But you have to give everybody who's left. And then again, I'm not so sure how it's a series of graphic novels, of course, and we know what happens in the graphic novels, which is why I think something else is going to be. But what do I know?
Yeah. Well, we'll see. It's certainly going to be a ridiculously successful movie.
Well, and then of course now because of the merger between Disney and Fox, we've brought the DC universe
or the
X-Men universe,
the
X-Men universe in under that same banner. We also picked up that one lingering A New Hope. Star Wars movie, and now that's under the Disney.
Yeah.
So you get that. You got that X-Men universe. You can combine that X-Men universe with that Marvel universe, despite the fact that they're all dead.
Be interesting to see what they're going to do with X-Men if they continue what has been done previously at Fox, or if Feige just wipes the slate clean and says, I don't like those X-Men movies. This is how we should have done it from the beginning. Here's how we're going to do it now. I don't know that he can, to be honest, because
a lot of people love Logan, and
a lot of people. That's it, They do certainly like some of those actors in those parts as established. You're going to have to really do some amazing casting if you're going to wipe the slate clean and bring a whole new bunch of people.
And the thing about those movies is they bounce back and forth in time.
Yeah.
So it's not like you can just go back and do a young X-Men when we did that already. I don't know.
It'll be interesting to see.
Mix and match.
It will be interesting to see. So, we're going to start off. Got a big old bunch of anime again. All of it except for 3 titles from Sentai. We've had the Sentai stuff sitting there, and I've wanted to really get into it for a while, and I just figured I'm just going to do a Sentai segment with the exception of 3. The first one is Mirai by Mamoru Hosoda, who's one of the great anime masters of our day. This was this didn't win the LA Film Critics Animation Award, but it came close. Mirai is a lovely film. This was Academy Award nominated in 2019, and deservedly so. It is quite a lovely film. Hosoda has been a fixture for a very, very long time, and always kind of one of the second or third place guys in the current pantheon of anime masters. But what this is about a kid who has a new baby sister and isn't quite comfortable with it, and winds up being, oh boy, this is, how do we even go to this place? Winds up being courted into a series of mystical adventures by otherworldly figures as a way of sort of reconciling himself to his life over many different stages. Is that a fair way of describing it?
Absolutely.
Okay. Without giving anything away. But it's these mystical interludes, some of which I think are a little bit silly, but it depends on your taste. But it really is. It's sort of a wonderful. It's like a family story told through a mystical lens with all kinds of sort of supernatural interludes, and it really is incredibly original, and it's beautiful and has some great extras on it, including an interview with Hosoda and a tour of the Studio Chizu, which is, of course, his answer to Studio Ghibli. And a whole bunch of other stuff on here behind the scenes, cast interviews, how the film did in Mirai and at the Cannes Film Festival where it debuted, and you get Movies Anywhere, which is always a big old treat where anime is concerned. We have a couple from Shout Factory as well. The first one is Maquia, When the Promised Flower Blooms. Maquia is an absolutely extraordinary film. I'm glad that Shout Factory is starting to do a bit more anime and venture into that place. And this takes place over a significant period of time, dealing with what is known as the Lorf. And the Lorf are a race of beings that live not forever, but pretty close to forever, and they wind up being invaded by another race who want to know what the secret of their almost immortality is. And this is all about Maquia, who is a Lorf and who is trying to flee the situation, and who winds up through finding a travel companion. And it becomes a road trip of discovery and revelation, and a whole lot of meaningful stuff in it. It's quite a lovely. I don't want to call it a fairy tale, but it kind of is like an anime fairy tale. In any case, it is absolutely beautiful. It's just a wonderful film. It was made in 2018. Never crossed our radar here with other anime films that were kind of on the usual G Kids list, which we get solicited for awards at the end of the year. So that was a wonderful discovery. And then this is Japanese schoolgirls. It's always a subject of anime, but somehow Liz and the Bluebird is significantly better than what you would normally expect for this. Liz and the Bluebird deals specifically with two young women who are working on an oboe and flute duet, and they're both very talented musicians, and they want to do this wonderful little musical duet, and it winds up putting incredible pressure on their friendship just to practice it and even execute it. And now we enter into a whole different stage of their friendship, and where that goes and how it evolves is really lovely and incredibly poetic, and some of the best animation I've seen in a long time from a company called Kyoto Animation. This was also made in 2018. This just shows you how deep and rich the incredible work is in Japanese anime. That these films, these are like, these are the ones that don't make ridiculous amounts of money, and they come over here because Shout Factory is able to discover them, and they're still amazing. There's just so much good work going on in Japan. It's really, really impressive. Naoko Yamada is the director, super talented. Reiko Yoshida, beautiful screenplay. Really a good film. Liz and the Bluebird, which of course is the piece of music that they are learning to play. So here's the Sentai stuff. Complete collection of Princess Resurrection, which is a little bit bonkers, but has moments of fun in it. All about it's kind of crazy, supernatural, undead, monster fighting madness, and there's sort of no other way to describe that one. Princess Resurrection, the complete collection. The Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon is out with another installment. Familia Myth, Is It Wrong to Expect a Hot Spring in a Dungeon? This stuff is really beefcakey and beautifully animated, oftentimes very creative, but it's still like Lord of the Rings crossed with S&M. That's basically what it is. I know. It's a very specific Japanese kind of obsession, and the names even are a little bit dodgy. There's some symbolism in the names. But maybe someday I'll do a video game and explain to us what it's all about. Young friendship is given all kinds of cool, colorful interpretations in Mitsuboshi Colors, the complete collection. This skews considerably young, and my daughter would love this. I haven't shown it to her yet. I'm thinking about probably doing it. It's about these kids who form a secret combination called Colors, which is supposed to be sort of like what was the organization in Thunderbirds? International Rescue.
International Rescue.
That's
Thunderbirds are go.
Yeah. So this is sort of like their little kid version of a neighborhood international rescue. Like, is there somebody, who has too much food? Who doesn't have enough food? What are the problems locally? Small problems, not a big deal. So anyway, it's three little girls who just decide they're going to be the heroines of the neighborhood with their special secret organization. Skewing a little older, just because the complete collection, just because is really superlative artwork, just really dazzling. Anytime I see anime where there's real attention to kind of character face details and to a muted palette of colors, it's interesting because that's not usually what you get out of it. And this is quite wonderful. It all takes place around the politics of high school, as so many of these things do. And presumably because that's the audience that they have, but as a lovely sort of poetic coming of age look at teen issues and teenagers, anime has rarely had something that is as insightful as Just Because. Just Because complete collection, really, really good, really solid. Complete collection of Girls Last Tour. It took me a while to figure out what's going on here. This is post-apocalyptic. Kind of weird anime. I'm still not quite sure what's going on, to be honest. It's a couple of girls doing the Mad Max thing, traveling the post-apocalyptic landscape and trying to sort of make sense of this very weird new world. And it never really becomes a full-on post-apocalyptic adventure. It becomes much more existential. And I'm still not quite sure what's going on, but all right. Continuing the feminist girl power theme is Rocket Girls, the complete collection. Now, this comes on the heels of an aborted spacewalk. I don't know if anybody followed this with the International Space Station. We were supposed to recently have the first all-female spacewalk, 2 female astronauts, which got bonked at the last minute because apparently they didn't have a spacesuit that would in a medium size to fit the one astronaut. Now, everybody's sort of piling on this and saying, "See, this is discrimination. This is you're not making." I'm sorry, we've had female astronauts for over 30 years. 30 years, yes. This is not about we don't make spacesuits for women. This is about somebody at Mission Control packed the wrong suit. That's that's the problem.
And I don't blame the astronauts. I hope to God we're not making our astronauts pack their own luggage. I hope to God we're not doing that.
No, but man, that's just that was a real embarrassment. But anyway, bringing that up to this. This is about a girl who lost her dad somewhere at sea, and in the process of looking for him, she winds up in space. I will not tell you exactly how that happens because it's really fun and a little bit freaky and kind of funny and at the same time amusing. But it is Rocket Girls is very clever and has a lot of really interesting things to say about Japanese society too in it. Really interesting. And you can tell just by looking at the artwork on the cover, which I'm not going to make mention of, but I'm going to show Tim, and Tim's going to be very impressed by.
I love it.
Okay, it's very interesting, right? Yeah. There's a certain thing happening in Japan, and they're having to reconcile themselves to it, and it has something to do with World War II and American soldiers. Yeah. So we also have UQ Holder. And I still don't quite understand why this is called UQ Holder. It's explained somewhere in this thing, but I was focusing on too many other things to try to make sense of it. This is 12 episodes and 3 OVAs, which of course are the not aired episodes from television. Additional episodes you only get on the disc, on the Blu-ray. UQ Holder is narratively a little bit convoluted. It's about a guy. It's about a hero family, and this guy who's the latest in a long line of heroes, and winds up having to rise up to his family's destiny with this crazy new challenge that has to do with vampires and a whole lot of magic, and it's a little bit tough to follow. So I'm sure there's a different history to this that I'm missing out on, but anyway. Love Chunibyo and Other Delusions, Take on Me. Love Chunibyo and Other Delusions. It has a real pretty significant following in the anime world, I have been told, and this continues that saga. There's nothing too much to really say there. Negima, ! Complete collection, is a 28 episode 4-disc set that is quite lovely. This is all about, being a pubescent wizard, pubescent witch, warlock, whatever the case might be. It's a little bit. It's not really for kids. It's got some edgy stuff in it, sexually and otherwise. So don't think that just because it's about teenagers and whatnot, this is more for grown-ups. And but it does have some fun stuff in it. It's not exactly my speed all the way through. Some other stuff that I didn't quite take a great deal of look at, but I do want to make mention to is Crowds, Gatchaman. I am a fan of, this is seasons 1 and 2 of the new Gatchaman Crowds. Gatchaman has a long history in anime, going back decades. This is its reincarnation, and it's in keeping with the Gatchaman universe. Made in Abyss also skews very, very young and very Pokemon. This is all about the mythical Abyss, which is this weird, deep, cavernous world that's filled with all kinds of wonder and magic and whimsy and dangers and whatever. And what happens when you go there? And it's not terribly well fleshed out, but they do seem to have fun with it. Takonomi, the complete collection, is sort of dealing with I don't want to say this is like when you graduate from Japanese schools and you have to become a young adult and you've got to start building your regular life. Well, then you've entered the world of Takonomi, because you're invariably going to have to start drinking your woes away, because I guess it's what they do in Japan. And
I thought they did that in Korea. Oh well, maybe.
I guess maybe both. Anyway, this is all basically about the cocktail club of postgraduate life in Japan, I guess, something like that. It's very, very culturally specific. Not my speed. Let's see, get a couple of others out of this. Dive, the complete collection, really, really super well animated. This is a lot of this stuff again deals with high school sports, and this is all about becoming a champion diver, and all the drama that goes around about training and how do I make the Olympics and all that stuff, and I can't fail, and I got to become the ultimate diver. And what's cool about this is the animators really have a lot of fun with the swimming and the diving and the body mechanics of recreating all of that. So assuming that you are a stressed out Japanese teen who is wondering how you're going to make the next competition, it's right in line with what you're living. Parasite, the Maxim. Parasite is another very successful anime franchise. This is the complete collection of this particular installment of Parasite. That is Parasite spelled with a Y, Syte. Super weird, man. It's really, really weird stuff. This is, basically about the parasitic organisms that have invaded the world and have to be fought, and they're, alien parasites. It's weird stuff. It's extreme. I think people are taking way too many hallucinogenics when they start doing animation like this, but it has a following. So, if you've liked what has come before in the Parasite universe, you will certainly like this. The last few here. Let me put some of these together because these do make sense together. We've got Shobitch. My Girlfriend is Shobitch. Complete collection. This is girls in school and a little risque as well. More than a little risque. It's very, very risque. It's definitely mature. It's not quite hentai, which is, really, really very, very adult. But it's not far from it. It's supposed to be kind of funny. I'm not quite sure what kind of dirty old men would be watching that. Damepri Anime Caravan, the complete collection. This is an interesting world. It's sort of a fantasy world with some interesting gender politics in it, and some kind of interesting fairy tale aspect to it. It seems to be skewing more teen. Does have some interesting characters. Something I will probably revisit at another point. Complete collection of Akame ga Kill, which is great. Absolutely great. Beautifully rendered, beautifully conceived, really well written, and some fantastic actions in this. I mean, this reminds me a little bit of like almost like an anime Into the Badlands.
Ah, interesting.
Right?
Interesting.
That's sort of where this lives, and the character designs are really great, and it's really, really interesting. Beautiful mythical, sword play stuff going on. A little bit of Lord of the Rings, but it's more Into the Badlands. Is what it really feels like, and I just love. I mean, like the costumes, the colors. It's really terrific.
It really is very Into the Bad. Final season of Into the Badlands underway right now.
That's right. That's right. Sherman.
Nathaniel Moon.
By the way, I love that artwork that he posted.
Isn't it fantastic?
What is that? What is that part of the promotion for the show?
It is part of the AMC promotion for the show.
So they went and hired an artist to do kind of anime styled. Artwork of the characters,
and it's wicked.
It's great.
Look up Nathaniel Moon. You'll see
Nathaniel Moon. That artwork is fantastic. And then the last few here, real quickly, is Princess Principal complete collection, which is this is kind of like I don't want to call it noir. It's anime that takes place in the early part of the 20th century, and it has sort of a steampunk quality to it, where there's this. Well, it's espionage, and it's steampunk, and it's noir, all rolled into anime. 12 episodes on 2 discs with a whole lot of cool extras on it, including the Japanese promos and commercials. And it centers around the discovery of a substance that enables you to defy gravity. And this obviously has all kinds of, ramifications all over Europe and all over the world with technology and everything else. But it's also about how these 2 particular characters use it, and how it plays into their own political machinations. The idea of an anti-gravity substance is pretty cool. Hitorijime, My Hero complete collection. It's not my thing, but it's it's sort of male teen politics, and I guess there are a lot of really troubled kids who need something that's all about your friendship and your buddies and all that kind of stuff. It's a little bit it's a little bit parochial. I'm sure this is super popular for certain kids, but not. Can't really give that one a big recommendation. And then Hakumei and Mikochi, Hakumei and Mikochi, Tiny Little Life in the Woods. This is freaking adorable, and I hate myself for liking it as much as I do. This is about these 2 little tiny girls who would live in this itty bitty little tiny house out in the forest, and it's so just ridiculously cute and funny and sweet, with all the giant woodland creatures and the giant trees and the whole little itty bitty kind of fairy munchkin thing going on is just and then you wind up getting the music, and the music is adorable, and the animals are adorable, and the whole thing is just adorable beyond all belief. And I don't know why this thing is rated TV 14. It should be like TV 3.
Oh,
So maybe there's something there I'm not seeing. But anyway, it's really, really sweet. Hakumei and Mikochi, tiny little life in the woods. It's so cute. It's adorable. Highly recommended. Very unusual, especially in the world of anime.
Hopefully they don't sneak any hentai in there.
No, there's.
That would be horrible.
Well, the only one that kind of verges on hentai is this freaking thing. Where is it? It's the My Girlfriend is Shobitch.
Yeah.
That's a little disturbing.
Yeah.
But there it is.
Yeah.
All from Sentai. Sentai's doing a lot of stuff, man.
Animation. I'm going to knock out a little bit of foreign.
Okay.
Here.
Yeah.
From Denmark, room 304. Interesting kind of film, sort of a crash-like film set in a Copenhagen hotel, mostly 9 different characters sort of intersect in various interesting ways. We find out what's going on in their lives. A stewardess, a woman who's been abandoned by her husband, a receptionist, the hotel manager, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Their lives sort of, come across each other and merge in interesting ways. So, like I said, sort of a crashy kind of thing, ultra dramatic, but not bad, not terrible at all. From Denmark, room 304. The Widowed Witch in Mandarin Chinese. Now, this is really a very good movie that I rather enjoyed. It's about this widow, 10 times widowed, several times widowed, with a 10-year-old son, and the town has started to decide that she's some sort of a witch. And they start treating her like
sounds like an anime.
Yeah, sure. They won't take her. Exactly, it really is. In a lot of different ways, she ends up living in this sort of like converted camper van with her son. And what she decides to do is to lean into the town's expectations of her. They want to treat her like a witch. She starts acting like one. And it's all about how, therefore, the town starts to come under her spell, even though she actually doesn't have any powers. It's really sort of satirical, very, very funny. And it's just smart. It's just a really delightfully smart feminist sort of story. The Widowed Witch, Mandarin Chinese. The Seventh Day. This is a Spanish film, and this is basically just Romeo and Juliet.
Okay.
These two families, Hatfields and McCoys, two families.
Yeah.
There was a promise of marriage. Somebody, reneged.
Yeah.
Everybody got their guns. It's pretty brutal, and and interested in that particular sort of way. But that's all it really is. Set in Spain, and Capernaum, a film that was in the run in the recent award season, the Nadine Lebecki film, Grand Prize jury winner at Cannes.
Yeah.
A lovely film.
A lot of people thought this would win at Cannes. It's not my favorite film of hers, but boy, I really like it a lot.
A lovely film about a young man who's taking care of a young woman and her son as he sues his own parents for giving him life in the first place.
It's really, she is Nadine Lebecki is originally an actress, Lebanese, sort of one of the preeminent Lebanese filmmakers right now. Certainly the preeminent Lebanese filmmaker who is telling the stories of women in particular, and as their experiences through all of these different aspects of Middle Eastern life.
Yeah.
But Caramel is probably still my favorite film of hers. But boy, this is a really powerful movie.
Lovely movie, and kind of relentless, but I like it anyway.
Yeah,
kind of relentless, but I like it anyway. Holiday. This is an interesting film from Denmark. It's about a young woman who wants to live a more comfortable life. Takes up with this handsome guy whom she knows is a part of a sort of crime family. Yeah. And insinuates herself into their family, figuring it's going to be all lovely. And she finds out there's a reason why they're a crime family. They're a bunch of sociopaths, sadistic criminals. And now she's trying to figure a way out. And it's kind of fun in that way. But you gotta kind of be into Denmark crime families.
Yeah.
Which there are some really vicious crime families.
Oh yeah. Every
Yeah.
country's got them.
Every
Nobody's exempt.
Alain René, Melo. This movie was adapted from a play in the 1920s.
Yeah.
And it's basically just a love triangle between these two musicians and this one young woman. She decides that the thing of it is, it's kind of plays her off to be the real shark of the three. She's in love with this guy. She meets his friend. She falls in love with his friend. They started an affair. Her husband gets sick, and even though her husband is sick, she still keeps up the affair with the other guy. And then things take a turn, like they do in all Renee films toward the end. So, interesting movie. Special edition here with all kinds of interesting content on it. And this itself, it's a brand new 2K restoration. Interviews with the director. This is, even though the play was written in 1920, he made this film in 1986. It's still a more than 30-year-old film now that I think about it. So interesting interview with him and the producer and several other folks who worked on the movie. Melo from Alain René, 1986.
So we're going to talk about some new movies now, one of which I'm going to be honest, I so despise this film. I genuinely hate it, but I have to be honest, it won the Golden Bear at the 68th Berlin Film Festival, and then also got a little bit of attention at Toronto. But this film is... This is just really a horrendous movie as far as I'm concerned. Here's the thing. The filmmaker who made this, Adina Pintili, is Romanian, and I have a problem with a lot of Romanian movies. I love a lot of Romanian movies. I love, 4 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days.
But you didn't like The Death of Mr. Lazarus.
No, I think it's a boring monstrosity.
Christy Pui.
No, he did.
He did the other one.
He did 432. Yeah. I also don't like Police Adjective. I don't. Let me put it this way. I don't
like those.
I know you do. Everyone else does. I'm the odd man out. But in that movie, there is literally a guy sitting at a desk and another guy who is reading a dictionary to him for 45 minutes. Yeah. I don't know, whatever it is. It's insane. Touch Me Not is just more avant-garde, formula-breaking stuff from a Romanian filmmaker. It's her first film, Adina Pintili. Don't really have a lot of women from Romania who have broken through, so I understand what's going on here. This is not really a narrative film. It's also not really a documentary. It's kind of a fusion of the two. It's a very strange, formless, avant-garde-ish semi-documentary with some staged dramatic stuff, kind of, about a woman who is undergoing a journey of sexual exploration, which includes interviewing various people who are on the fringes and the margins of society, including this German transgender activist who shares with us the erogenous zones of the nipple, and including a guy who is incredibly physically handicapped to the point where it makes the film difficult to watch, who is going through all kinds of sex surrogate exploration therapy. And, it gets weird. This thing it reminds me more than anything of I Am Curious Yellow, which is a little bit kind of, is it documentary? Is it not? It gets self-reflexive in the sense that you see the film crew at points in the film. Not quite sure what's staged, what isn't. Same thing happens here. Adina Pintili actually makes an appearance in the film, like she's somehow interfacing with the lead actress and her exploration. None of this really makes much sense. It's all very esoteric and weird. But the best part is, Tim, it's 128 minutes long.
128 minutes.
Imagine, this is another one of those,
of uncomfortable
sex. It's just so uncomfortable. It's on Blu-ray from Kino Lorber. Look, you know what? It won the Berlin Film Festival. I am obligated by virtue of the ethics of my craft of my profession to tell you this is a highly acclaimed film. But I also have to tell you that Peter Bradshaw, when he reviewed it for The Guardian, called it embarrassingly awful and considered a calamity for the legitimacy going forward of the Berlin Film Festival. And I have to really kind of agree. But we appear to be in something of a minority here. So there it is.
All right. On the basis of Sex, which was also a film in the mix for a little while there.
For a moment.
Last year, for a moment, not very long. But it's interesting to me in that Green Book won that award, and that movie and this movie live in the exact same sort of zone.
That's the first time I've ever heard anybody say that.
Film,
You're right.
Speeches, one of them wins the Academy Award, and the other one just sort of slips by, which is,
interesting.
I don't know what to say
You're
about
right,
that. Mimi Leader, which is one of the reasons why I was rooting for the film. Don't get me wrong. It's a fairly mediocre film.
Yeah.
With a decent performance by Felicity Jones and a couple of good speeches and a couple of good moments, a couple of good courtroom moments. Armie Hammer gives a good performance too.
Very good. And we should say this is the story of how Justice Ginsburg became Justice Ginsburg. Not how she became a judge, but she was a significant lawyer. She was a decent lawyer who she became one of the first women at Harvard Law School, and eventually with her husband wound up setting a landmark case with respect to
on the basis of sex.
On the basis of sex, gender in the workplace. Yeah,
and it's really interesting in that context. I like the love story. The thing about this movie, it's a love story about Ruth Bader and her husband. Who, by all accounts, for everyone who knows, he's passed away not terribly long ago.
That's right.
That was a 60-year-long love story. Yeah. When they were in law school together, he came down with an illness and couldn't go to class. She went to all her classes
and his classes
and all his classes. Took notes and then would read his notes to him. How fantastic!
See, and that's the good stuff in the film. The thing that bugged me about it was like, and I love Mimi Leader, by the way. I think Mimi Leader is a great director. I don't think the problem with this movie is the directing. I think the problem is the script, because it was like they were, and perhaps even the producing. It's as though they are so in awe of her as a living person, and this is why it doesn't help when you make movies about living people.
Yeah,
that they are afraid to expose any cracks in her veneer. Look, Ruth Bader Ginsburg is a human being like everybody else. I guarantee you, she can be stone cold unpleasant to somebody somewhere, and then she's been a human being at some point, and not this immortal that her admirers build her up to be. And it would have been nice to see a human being there.
It's an interesting.
Felicity Jones is a great actress. She could have done it.
Yeah. Well, sure. The other movie, biopic, I suppose, Vice last year that did get nominated for Academy Award. Yeah. Great performances, but it does the exact same thing, but in the reverse. And making sure that we understand how evil. Dick Cheney is.
These are human beings. Show me, warts and all, but show me, let me struggle. Let me decide whether I like them or not. Let me decide. Give me something to wrestle with. I always point to Lawrence of Arabia as the archetypal movie of that type. Lawrence is in that movie someone you struggle with, because he is likable and charismatic, and at the same time he's psychopathic and horrible. Yeah, and you're meant to not come to a conclusion.
And as we move further into history, away from that history, we struggle with him even more. Understanding how those things sort of worked out.
Affects the present day.
Bonus features on this. Interesting stuff. Martin and Ruth, a loving partnership. That's the most interesting bonus feature on that. Man on a Ledge. I remember covering this movie for Film Week back in 2012 when it came out. Elizabeth Banks, Sam Worthington, when Sam Worthington was still a movie star, Jamie Bell, in this movie. And it looks like a movie that's about a guy who's standing on the ledge, and the cops, the central cop being played by Elizabeth Banks, is trying to talk him off of that ledge. But there's actually something else going on in this movie altogether. Now, if you know the filmmakers here, particularly the director Asghar Leff and the writer Pablo Fuenhueves, I think it's the way you say his name.
Yeah.
And you look them up, you'll come to realize that they're both these sort of noted atheists. And this movie is an atheist movie. Very often we talk about faith-based films, both on the radio show and here.
I did last week, yeah.
And it's interesting that this film is doing the exact same thing that those films do, and failing for all the same reasons, only in reverse. It has a point of view and a specific point that it's trying to make about the non-existence of God, and what it means to be an atheist. And it's going to do that no matter what. It's going to do that no matter what, while wrapping itself in the guise of a heist film. But it's not really a heist film at all. All right. Anyway, Man on the Ledge. It's a pretty good movie, though, but it's not really a heist film. We Die Young, Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. Jean-Claude. Look, I'll say this about Jean-Claude. He once a pretty boy action karate movie star. He is none of those things anymore.
No.
But he can still get that leg up.
Yeah, he can.
Still has never said a convincing word of dialogue ever in a movie. Not ever, not once, not ever, not what in a movie. Anyway, this is about a 14-year-old boy who gets drug into the gang life in Washington, D.C., doesn't want to be in the gang life. He has a big brother who'd like to help him get out of the gang life. Mm-hmm. They stumble across this sort of PTSD-affected soldier who's really just sort of bumming around the streets, and he decides he's going to take up on their sides and help them get out of this life, and they go up against MS-13. So you have an entire gang of MS-13, a little boy, another dude, and Jean-Claude Van Damme. Guess who wins?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jean-Claude kicks everybody's ass in the movie. Back when Dario Argento made that movie, The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, it spawned a whole raft look-alike, sound-alike, be-alike sort of giallo films, including the Iguana with the Tongue of Fire, which is just a title that I love. I mean, no pretense as not being in the vein of, and it is an insanely excessive giallo film. It is just as vicious and sociopathic, full of fetish murders and all kinds of nonsensical crap, including all of these red herrings, right? So this is one of those movies where you watch it and it alludes to absolutely everyone being the killer.
Yeah.
Anyone who crosses that camera takes a beat and a moment and gives a look and might be the killer, even though you're never going to see that person in this movie again for the rest of the entire movie. So anybody could be doing it. That's the way this is laid out. Anyway, fantastic film, and if you're into that kind of thing, packed with all kinds of special features on a 2K restoration. Is this a Blu-ray? Yeah, this is a Blu-ray. The Iguana with the Tongue of Fire.
Gonna hit a little TV right now. I'm gonna go through some Acorn stuff. The first is from the Acorn Athena line, Elizabeth I and Her Enemies. This is an interesting documentary and recreation series. 3 episodes, about, not long. It's about, 2.5 hours. That looks at the reign of Queen Elizabeth I, who we know so well from movies like Elizabeth and Elizabeth the Golden Age and Shakespeare in Love, and recently Mary Queen of Scots. And, Queen Elizabeth I keeps showing up in movies and miniseries over and over and over.
Some of them better than others.
Some better than others. But still a remarkably seminal figure in British history, in Western civilization. And so this is a couple of the presenters here is Dan Jones and Susanna Lipscomb. Take us through all of the separating fact from fiction and going to the places that were central, and it's really and there's some really interesting recreations here. What a life. I mean, the thing that I find compelling about this is how much of her life we know from the movies, and what a small part of her overall life and the intrigue that actually was.
Yeah.
And you can go all the way back to, Elizabeth in Essex, right? The old Bette Davis movie.
Yeah.
And if you've seen every movie about Queen Elizabeth I, you have still only seen a tiny fraction of the drama that there was in her life. They could mine her life for 50 more movies and we still wouldn't scratch it. Yep. Really one of the most amazingly eventful lives ever. So that's really cool. Elizabeth I and Her Enemies. Emphasis on enemies, because there were a lot of them. There were a lot of them. The woman didn't make a lot of friends. And then we got on Blu-ray a couple of series. One is Acorn TV original Mystery Road Series 1 with the ever wonderful Judy Davis and Aaron Pedersen. This is they call this Australia's answer to True Detective, and even put that right on the packaging. I don't know that that's quite right. It is definitely an outback modern Western. In some respects, it feels it probably splits the difference between what's the series that I'm thinking of? The modern Western series set in Kentucky. That was shot in Kentucky, at least.
Modern Western shot in Kentucky.
You know what I'm talking about? It wasn't on TCM. It was on.
The one with all the women who came to power because all the men died in the war.
No. This is just a guy with a cowboy hat solving crimes, being a modern day. Why can't I think of this? Anyway, so Mystery Road Series 1 is more detective show than anything else. It's not True Detective, but it's procedural, and it's good. I mean, Judy Davis is amazing. She's absolutely fantastic. And Peterson is cool because he's Aboriginal, so you get that, you get the cultural stuff, you get the racial stuff, and it really makes it just a top-notch series. The photography is fantastic. It's super cool. I am looking forward to more series of Mystery Road and the great Judy Davis. We talked previously about Brokenwood Mysteries, Series 5. And this takes place in New Zealand, which, since we talked about the last one, obviously there was the horrible shooting in New Zealand. And this crime show takes on kind of a different feel, not necessarily in a good way, but this is the Blu-ray of it that we have here, Series 5, The Brokenwood Mysteries. And, I now look at this not as, the New Zealanders are, pretending that they have crime. Now you look at this and you think, maybe there's a little bit more true life underlying what's going on here than New Zealand would like to necessarily publicize. Rake Series 5 with the great Richard Roxburgh, who never seems to age. Richard Roxburgh is really wonderful in this. So here's what's going on in Series 5 of this thing. He is no longer an attorney. He's been disbarred, and he has now won himself a Senate seat in Australia based on a powerful campaign pledge. That pledge? To do nothing.
I love it.
Isn't that great? It's kind of fun. So there's a behind-the-scenes featurette here, which is pretty long. It's over half an hour long, and it's really good, too. But Roxburgh is just a treasure, and like Judy Davis, you can watch him forever. And then lastly, once more for Australia, is The Heart Guy, which is, this is Series 3 of The Heart Guy, which is interesting. This is a little bit of a cross between Grey's Anatomy and Northern Exposure, if anybody remembers Northern Exposure.
Yeah, I love Northern Exposure.
Yeah, so, he used to be a hotshot heart surgeon. Now he's had all kinds of problems, and he's being punished, and he's been sent to small town where he has to be a general practitioner. And we're getting to the end of this probationary period that he had, so now we can't keep that going forever. So they throw some really interesting twists on this to keep it going, romantic and financial and other stuff. And I won't tell you where it goes, but it's actually kind of fun. And so, you get, again, beautiful Australian photography. That is The Heart Guy, Series 3.
Fantastic. I got a few over here.
Yeah.
Including Ray Donovan, which first premiered in 2013. If you're keeping track of that kind of thing, I was not a big fan of this series, and then I liked it. Okay, it was fine, but I kept thinking about it in terms of Rockford Files, the Rockford Files, which is another show about a lone sort of detective, a guy. Although Ray is more of a fixer than a detective, roaming around L.A. taking care of stuff for people. And I do far and away prefer the Rockford Files to Ray Donovan, who's really just kind of a thug and goes around beating people up. That's all he really does, Ray Donovan. He's going to go 9 down eventually before it's all over. Jim Rockford was exactly the opposite. He didn't go out looking to fight with anybody, and most of the time he got beat up himself. Yeah. As he tried to protect the girl. So anyway, lots of people love this. This is the 6th season. All kinds of new special features on this thing. If you like Ray Donovan, then I suppose you got to pick this thing up. But like I said, different strokes for different folks. That is for sure. Ivana trumps For Love Alone.
I'd forgotten this even existed. You know that?
Yeah, me too. I mean,
Stephen Collins as Donald Trump.
Yeah, who got in trouble for some things, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, when Collins he was
Stephen Collins. Although to be honest with you, Donald Trump around this period was a fairly decent-looking dude, and it was not particularly insane for Stephen Collins to be playing the television movie version of him.
It's probably true. Yeah, it's probably true. Yeah.
So don't want to be mean about it just because And who the hell would have thunk back when they made this movie?
I know, right?
Which was in 1996, by the way. Anyway, it was she wrote a book. They made a TV movie about it. I'm surprised they didn't put this out last year.
I know, right?
Yeah. Project Blue Book, television series, 2019. Project Blue Book, of course, being the UFO investigation.
And there was a previous Project Blue Book back in the 80s, early 80s, we should point out, about the UFO investigation.
Yeah, the United States Air Force officers skeptical going on looking into the conspiracy theories about Project Blue Book. Here's the thing about all of the Project Blue Book conspiracy theories. They're all just that, conspiracy theories. None of them are true. Nothing about this series makes them any more true. But it's fun to watch.
Here's what I'm convinced of. I was thinking about this the other day in the shower, because that's where I think about important things.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, you know what? I believe that aliens and Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster and the Abominable Snowman are all hopelessly shy. And the reason I believe that is because back before we had cell phones and digital cameras mounted on every damn thing, we were getting reports of them everywhere and pictures everywhere and all kinds of stuff. And as soon as there are cameras everywhere,
everybody's got one.
They all go away. And my only explanation for that is that they're just really shy and very bashful.
Except for Bigfoot, who, of course, we know was killed by the same guy who killed Hitler.
That's right.
Sam
Elliott.
Episode. Yeah. Oh, dude, Doctor Who. I did not see this. I'm a ridiculous Tom Baker Doctor Who fan, as people who listen to this is the complete 7th season, which was the final season of the Doctor Who run of Tom Baker run as Doctor Who, and it's just fantastic. This must be an anniversary of it.
Yeah,
it is. It's the 25-year anniversary
on Blu-ray.
On Blu-ray. So this is just fantastic for wonderful Doctor Who
The
fans.
Doctor Who that you and I discovered Doctor Who through.
Oh yeah, this is
our Doctor Who.
Yeah, the other one, and later I came to the other Doctor Who's, and I hung around for a little while as they started. But this was always my Doctor Who. But
he was the first young Doctor Who. He was the first
young
not old
sassy,
man Doctor
Who. Not the old man. He wore that scarf and that hat, and he hung around with the hottest sidekicks. Layla, are you kidding me? He was like, no, I'm not hanging around with a bunch of young kids. All kinds of stuff on this. New commentaries. It's just really fantastic. Moderated by Matthew Sweet. There's an interview who played K9. It's just a wonderful, wonderful series. You gotta let me borrow this one.
You got it.
8-disc set.
Yeah.
The final season of Tom Baker's Doctor Who. 7th season. Great.
So we're going to hit some classic movies for probably the remainder of the show here. And I have a giant stack of combination sets here. Multi-sets. Many movies on one set. And they are all really, really kind of cool and fun in their own way, even the cheesy ones. The first one is the Roy Rogers Happy Trails Collection. Look, singing cowboys were once a thing. Gene Autry and Roy Rogers and all the rest of them. And Roy Rogers, Roy Rogers and his wife Dale Evans made a lot of movies. A lot of movies. And you know what? There are 20 of them here. Now, back then, movies were like TV episodes.
Yeah, 35, 40 minutes long. 60 was a feature.
And this is authorized by the Roy Rogers estate, so they have good elements, and it's a lot of fun. They're all kind of the same, about half and half, black and white in color. And but Roy Rogers Jr. and Jeff Kramer, film archivist, put all this together and did a wonderful job. There's even some fun stuff on here. A tour of the Roy Rogers Museum that his son hosts on here as well. And if you're a Roy Rogers fan, you'll just go nuts for this. This is a whole lot of fun, and a lot of great actors show up in these things. It really is fun. So that's the Roy Rogers Happy Trails Collection, 20 films. Can't miss that. Also have Outlaws and Con Men, 4-movie collection, which includes Sting of the West, Bad Man's River, Django's Cut Price Corpses, and Django Shoots First. Django's Cut Price Corpses is one that I thought was just absolutely hilarious.
Just anybody could make a Django movie.
It's true. It's fantastic and absolutely hilarious. And Django Shoots First. Really, really good stuff. Bad Man's River is the one that you really want to kind of focus on here because it has Lee Van Cleef and James Mason and Gina Lollobrigida. And that's a really fantastic cast. And slightly behind it is Sting of the West, which has Jack Palance and Lionel Stander. But the Django films have their own fun appeal. No Tell Motel, 8-movie collection. This is horror stuff. And it includes the original Hostel, director's cut for some horrible reason, as well as Hostel Part 2. Those are the ones that sort of are the primary anchor here. Also includes Vacancy, Identity, Terror at Red Wolf Inn, It Happened at Nightmare Inn, Legacy of Blood, and The Devil's Nightmare. Look, it's a lot of blood and gore, and it's all sort of hotel-oriented. And if you just want to put something on at Halloween time or just to scare and upset the neighbors, that'll do the trick. Robin Hood Origins includes 5 films that are all mediocre to middling, and a couple are sort of terrible. But anyway, these are all from the Hammer Productions that dabbled momentarily in the Robin Hood lore. Bandit of Sherwood Forest, Prince of Thieves, Black Arrow, Rogues of Sherwood Forest, and Sword of Sherwood Forest. All of them obviously feature length, but barely. There's barely enough story to sustain any of this stuff. The one that I think is sort of worth mentioning is Sword of Sherwood Forest, because Terrence Fisher directed it, and Terrence Fisher's a good director.
Yeah.
Also have the Cloverfield 3-movie collection, which includes the original Cloverfield, directed by our very good friend Matt Reeves. That's what put him back on the map again. 10 Cloverfield Lane, which was a lot better than I think anybody imagined it had a right to be, with John Goodman. And the Cloverfield Paradox, recently on Netflix, and got very middling reviews. Nonetheless, this effectively means, as far as I'm concerned, that the Cloverfield saga is over. So make up your own mind. Check it out. J.J. Abrams did this, and I still obviously am partial to the Cloverfield because Matt directed it. Also, Reese Witherspoon in the Legally Blonde collection from Shout Select. This includes the original Legally Blonde and Legally Blonde 2, which is not bad. The original is better, but they're still both a lot of fun. And, of course, this went on to be a Broadway musical, which is kind of insane. But Legally Blonde has a great soundtrack, and I can't take that away from it. Wonderful that they made this a Shout Select release, both films on one. I'm glad they did that. Audio commentaries, featurettes, deleted scenes, gags, tons of great stuff, and a beautiful new transfer. Also, slightly less memorable is the Poison Ivy collection. All 4 Poison Ivy films, which, of course, don't have the same actress in all of them. Drew Barrymore originated the character, but it eventually, wound up being taken over by other actresses, including Jamie Presley and Alyssa Milano. And, look, it's tacky and sleazy and a little bit lascivious and kind of enjoyable in a weird way. I miss Jamie Presley. I'd forgotten what a great actress she is. She plays Ivy's sister in Poison Ivy, the new Seduction, by the way. But in any case, great showcase for a lot of actresses who want to kind of go, bad and naughty and nasty, and that's what Poison Ivy does. We got You Got Served and Stomp the Yard in a double feature. It's all about the dancing. If you don't like the dancing, you won't like the movies, but that's on Blu-ray. Also have Hostel and Hostel 2 on Blu-ray as a standalone horror double feature if you don't want to get the other one on DVD. We've also got, let me dig through these real fast, Fort Yuma Gold and Damned Hot Day of Fire, Western double feature. 2 incredibly cheesy but wonderfully fun Westerns. Fort Yuma Gold stars Montgomery Wood, who I don't think made another movie in his whole life. Damned Hot Day of Fire has Robert Woods and John Ireland, who, of course, did a few other things. These are just exploitation Westerns. They're actually a whole lot of fun. And allegedly, according to the Spaghetti Western database that I didn't even know existed, which is quoted on the back, these are 2 of Quentin Tarantino's favorite spaghetti Westerns.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know that to be true. Never heard of that database. Just putting it out there. A couple of mushy sort of family-oriented things for the faith-based audience. I don't want to be derogatory, but these really are not terribly good movies, but they are very mushy and sentimental. Is Footprints and Friends for Life, both of them Dove approved. And, they're okay. They're formulaic in the way that these films are formulaic. Footprints, of course, is obviously centered around the famous poem. And it's a guy and a dog story. How do you not sort of be touched by that? Friends for Life is, about a guy whose wife comes down with a horrible illness, and how do you cope with that? So, it's a little schmaltzy, but it is what it is. Another double feature, Nightwing and Shadow of the Hawk. These are horror double features, specifically films from the 1970s, so like 70s-era horror exploitation films. They're sad to me in this sense that Shadow of the Hawk in particular stars Jan Michael Vincent, who recently passed after a very difficult life. And I'm still not ready to kind of see Jan Michael Vincent in anything because he's so young and strong and has his legs, and it's really devastating to see what became of him when you see pictures later in life. And then the last here are a couple of 4-in-1 collections. One is the Thrillers 4-in-1 collection. The other one is the Apocalypse 4-in-1 collection. Mostly junk, but the Thrillers 4-in-1 collection does at least have Did I Kill My Mother? ? Which is a stone cold riot. I don't know if this thing is supposed to be as campy as they make it out, but it's pretty funny. It really is pretty funny. And my favorite of all of these is on the Apocalypse 4-in-1 collection, Ghostquake. Do you know why? And by the way, here are the 4 movies: Ghostquake, Weather Wars, Arachnoquake. I think we know what that is. It's like there's an earthquake, spiders everywhere. And Miami Magma, which is about a volcano that appears and erupts in Miami. It's the stupidest thing ever. But the thing that makes Ghostquake awesome, It has Danny Trejo.
Yes.
Look, Ghostquake with Danny Trejo. Do I even need to tell you anything else about it? Of course not. It's great.
Danny Trejo's in it. Don't need anything else. Let's see. A few more over here.
Yeah, let's do the Twilight Time stuff.
From 1978, Richard Dreyfuss film. Richard Dreyfuss, you can't make movies like this anymore. As feature films, anyway. We talked about this last show. Richard Dreyfuss, The Big Fix. This film was Richard Dreyfuss, Susan Ann Spa, Bonnie Bedelia, John Lithgow, F. Mary Abraham. And it's really just a film about the 60s radical guy, a Berkeley kind of guy, who 20 years on no longer engages in that sort of left-wing ideology. His wife left him because his law degree didn't turn into any money for them, and he's working as a private detective. And he gets hired to sort of figure out what's going on in the case of this other guy that's running for governor. It's just, this is just a neat movie that was really, really funny, directed by the great Bill Conti. And, it's just not the kind of film that gets made as a feature film anymore. But I rather enjoyed this movie at the time, and I think I'd rather enjoy it now. Special features includes an isolation of the score for it. From 1966, Michael Anderson film The Quiller Memorandum.
Love this movie.
It was a neat movie.
It's a cool movie.
I kind of think it meant to be maybe a sort of Bondian sort of thing that didn't quite work out. Nevertheless, based on a Harold Pinter screenplay. With Trevor Dudley doing some writing too. Anyway, it's set in West Berlin in the 60s, and you have these two British agents to get killed, and then the MI5 or whatever it would have been dispatched this badass super spy to investigate what happened and bring the guilty to justice. Neat. A film from Twilight Time. Special features include, again, the isolated score track and an audio commentary from a couple of noted film historians. The Whole Town's Talking, Edward G. Robinson film.
It's great.
It's a neat movie from 1935. Edward G. gets to play these two roles. One is this sort of soft-spoken guy who happens to look like Public Enemy #1, Killer Mannion, and it's just a really, really neat movie. Jean Arthur in this film. Playing the sort of love interest. It's a funny film as well. Just fantastic. Edward G. Robinson movie. Edward G. Robinson didn't get to play funny that often, but if you have Joe Swirling writing the dialogue, Edward G. Robinson can be funny. John Ford film.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot on here in terms of special features, which is unfortunate. And then River's Edge from 1957, not the Keanu Reeves film from the middle 80s, which is a good movie. I'm not making fun of it. But River's Edge from 1957, an Alan Dewan film, which is really just an intense noir, despite the fact that it's in color. It is still a noir, and as we often say, noir is not a genre of film,
right?
But rather an application of a style.
Yes,
it can be applied to any genre. This one is sort of a Western noir set in New Mexico.
We have outback noir and rural noir, and
horror noir, I mean, all kinds of stuff. Ray Milland, Anthony Quinn, Dorothy Pageant, Harry Carey Jr. I just love all of these wonderful old actors who were in these movies. Anyway, Ray Milland, Anthony Quinn is in love with Deborah Pageant. Her old boyfriend, Ray Milland, who's a bit of a psychopath, comes into town and forces them to take him across the river. It's a good movie that I rather enjoyed. Special features include an audio commentary from film historians Alan Silver and James Ursani. That's really great. And the isolated score from Twilight Pictures.
And we have two amazing releases from Flicker Alley, two classic widescreen movies that have gone largely unnoticed and unrecognized for many, many years. Flicker Alley, of course, has done a wonderful job restoring and releasing the whole Cinerama library. And this is one that came completely out of the blue. I had never seen this before, didn't even know that it existed. The Golden Head from 1965. A narrative film shot in Cinerama this was a Hungarian UK-US co-production, believe it or not. I didn't even know that existed in the 1960s. Directed by Richard Thorpe, who was a really major director of the period. This is on Blu-ray and has been completely restored, and it's a really, really interesting movie. that takes place in Hungary, hence the Hungarian involvement in this, about a bunch of kids who have gone there for a detective convention with their dad, who is, of course, a detective. And in a kind of weird a reverse Home Alone thing, the kids wind up discovering this criminal plot and wind up having to kind of do be like their dad, use what their dad has taught them, and become like kid detectives. There's a little bit of I mean, it's sweet and cute, and it's a little bit of Mary Poppins and a little bit of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang feel in this. But it's beautifully shot. I mean, it's really, really incredible to look at, especially in Blu-ray. It is and they do the simulated curved screen smile box thing, which is also really fun. Some great bonus features on here too. The Fortress of Peace, which is this Swiss Army propaganda film that was also shot in Cinerama, a 70mm cartoon by John Hubley called The Tale of Old Whiff. And then there are restoration demonstrations and still galleries. It's really, really cool. The Golden Head, great, great movie. And then this is a first for Flicker Rally. They are now they've just released The Flying Clipper, otherwise known as Mediterranean Holiday, in not just Blu-ray, but 4K UHD. And it's extraordinary how this looks. This was a German film. This is not Cinerama. This is a German film that was made in 1962 with a 70mm camera designed specifically for this film, which doesn't exist anymore, as I understand it. This camera no longer exists. And so they were able to get the negatives, the original elements for this, and scan them into 4K from the original 70mm elements. And it's unbelievable. It's more stunning than almost anything that you would watch shot digitally in 4K and released in 4K. Any of these new movies that we see now, this is breathtaking, even more so than a lot of these current IMAX releases. It really, really is incredible. It's a travelogue, and as most Cinerama movies were at the time. And you're going through all these fascinating places, which includes the Pantheon in Europe and so forth. But it's just the photography, the fact that it has that sheen because of the stock that they used from the 1960s. It really takes you back in time. It's just tremendous. And this also includes a bunch of different special features, multiple audio options, lobby cards, an interview with the original camera operator, which is very interesting, and a couple other interviews with one with a film projectionist, one with a 70mm expert, stuff on the restoration. It's really, really cool. So Flying Clipper, Mediterranean Holiday in 4K and Blu-ray. Really terrific.
Few over here?
Yeah.
Let's come over here and take a look. I love the boxes of these home video Blu-rays from Mill Creek because they're set up to look like a like VHS, that's slightly pulled out of the box with that Be Kind, Rewind, and the parental guidance, the stickers and all that kind of stuff. And if you're as old as us, that's just damn cool and happy to look at. The first one, Sheena. Tanya Roberts as Sheena. Man, oh man, oh man, oh man. I do not mind telling you that that I absolutely love these films back in the day. They're really terrible, absolutely just horrible films. 1984 Sheena, kind of loosely based on the Tarzan legend. She grew up in Africa, raised by some noble tribes, taught to telepathically listen to the animals and run around in this little loinclothy kind of thing.
Love it. It was after she was on Charlie's Angels.
After Charlie's Angels. Directed by John Gillerman. Which is
weird.
Just so weird, but not. I mean, weird, but not weird. Weird in that John Gillerman, who goes all the way back to Bridget Remagen, and the Blue Max and movies like that, but
Towering Inferno,
made his way through Towering and Inferno and King Kong and another King Kong and this. So that's back when as a sort of journeyman director, it's just no telling what the hell would happen to your career over the course of your career. as opposed to today. Songwriter Chris Christopherson and Willie Nelson in this movie from back in the day about
and my friend Melinda is in that too.
Melinda Dillon,
yeah,
of course, in this movie. Chris, directed again, very strange when you think about it, by Alan Rudolph.
Yeah.
A guy who directed Choose Me and Afterglow and Trouble in Mind and all these movies, and then in this sort of interesting movie about these two Texas sort of like singing team, they break up, and Willie Nelson's going to lose his family and lose all his songs and has to get back with Blackie, Chris Christopherson, to help him win it all back. Kind of neat. Always loved The Legend of Billie Jean. Because
I love the theme song.
That
Pat Benatar theme
Pat
song.
Benatar
Slays me.
But again, this is a Matthew Robbins film.
I know
this 1980 whatever it was film, 1980 80 some odd film. Matthew Robbins, who directed Dragon Slayer and Batteries Not Included, Mimic, and just all these sort of interesting films. None of those movies you could make today. This is a neat movie, though. I always like this movie because of the sort of brother-sister theme in it. Christian Slater plays the little boy who has this scooter. The bully guy wrecks his scooter. Helen Slater goes over there and demands $608 back for her brother, and something happens, and they have to take it on the Healing Toe, and it becomes this sort of legendary thing, the legend of Billie Jean, as her and her brother sort of run around town. Helen Slater, just wonderful. Her in this movie and her in that original Supergirl movie, just a couple of the best things that I ever experienced in my life. and then we have yet another one. One of the first films, called Neighbors, was one directed by John Avildsen, starring John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd. And this was just one of the craziest, funniest films that those sort of like Saturday Night Live, so like early 80s Saturday Night Live guys coming out and making movies made. Larry Gilbert screenplay, adapted from a novel, but a Larry Gilbert screenplay, and again, just so funny. John Belushi, Kathy Moriarty, Dan Aykroyd, Tim Kazurinsky. It's just, all of these people just at the top of their game. And this was not a hit at the time, but it has taken up a bit of a cult following, and it's just a comic nightmare is what they call it, and it was really, really funny.
So, gonna do some Kino stuff right now, and the first one is the original Emmanuelle trilogy, finally out on Blu-ray.
Oh,
now, if you're as old as Tim and I are.
Oh, yeah.
There was life before Star Wars.
Yeah.
Especially if you're, a boy of a certain age.
The word Emmanuelle has so much loaded in me. Just the name.
And here's the thing, like Django, there wound up being a whole lot of Emmanuelle movies that had nothing to do with the original Emmanuelle.
No.
And, they would spell the name differently. Like these, the original Emmanuelle trilogy, because they spell it Emmanuelle.
Yeah.
Everybody else, there'd be like one M or one L or one M and one L or no E at the end. I mean, they
everybody's just trying to be careful.
Yeah, they're just trying to be careful. There's an attorney somewhere that said, you could do an Emmanuelle movie if you don't use two M's.
Yeah.
and it's the same thing with Bruce Lee. That's how there's like Bruce Lee, L-I, Bruce too many Bruces and too many Lees at a certain point. So the original Emmanuelle, directed by Just Yeken, in 1974, was basically a softcore movie at a moment when hardcore was becoming a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole idea was, hey, for people that don't, now that movies have ratings and there's this X thing and there are dirty movie theaters and, that are being frequented primarily by men wearing raincoats, maybe we can do something for people who don't want to. It's that whole thing in Taxi Driver where he says, no, this is the movie that all the couples come to. It's like, no.
Yeah.
So let's do something a little lighter, a little gentler, that we can get into a legit theater that isn't pornographic.
It's still kind of sassy. Yeah. Radley Metzger made a whole lot of those.
Oh,
movies.
Tons of those. And Emmanuelle was that first movie with Sylvia Kristel as a woman who is innocent to the ways of, sexual experience and is introduced and discovers all of this stuff. And people could sort of, feel like they were watching something a little naughty without thinking it was pornographic. Yeah. It's a crap movie, don't get me wrong. Yeah. It's ridiculous in hindsight, and it's not well made, but it's iconic. Yeah. And Sylvia Kristel is an iconic figure. And there are featurettes on here where they talk about, The Joys of Emmanuelle Part 1 is on the first film, and The Joys of Emmanuelle Part 2 is on Emmanuelle 2, so they split that up, assuming that you're going to get all of these. And they interview, Yu Yostiakin and the director, and they've got all that stuff. I have to say, I think the better film, actually, if we're using general, if we're going there, is Emmanuelle 2. Directed by a different director, Francis Giacobetti, who is a better director, still not a very good director, but this has a wonderful Francis Lai score, which is also very iconic, a better cast. Emmanuelle is experienced now, so the film isn't it's wearing its intentions on its sleeve, and it's going into, it's doing what it wants to do now. And the interesting thing here is, this takes place in Hong Kong, and there's a bathhouse scene in here, and one of the masseuses in the bathhouse is Laura Gemser.
Oh.
The star of Black Emmanuelle.
Oh, hey, you know where that seed was planted.
There was a producer that got an idea and went, let's do that.
I wonder if they use an E, where they put the E.
And then Goodbye Emmanuelle was the third one, directed by Francois Leterrier, who actually was a better This is better directed. It's the whole shtick is getting a little bit old and long in the tooth. You can only get so much forbidden sex and lust out of these things,
particularly with the internet.
Yeah, I mean, now it's getting a little bit. Now they've moved to the Seychelles Islands, and they're just looking for nice cinematography in this one. There's not much else you can do. The reason to see this one, though, is because of the music. It's not Francis Lai anymore. Serge Gainsbourg did the music.
Yes.
And so that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So those three are out now. And then we also have from Kino, three other pretty terrific studio classic releases. One from 1970 that a lot of people may have forgotten about is Charles Bronson and Marlène Jobert in the U.S. and French co-production, Rider on the Train, directed by René Clément, legendary French director. And this is a really, really good film. René Clément made so many great films, including Purple Noon, which was later remade into a film that I gave 5 stars to, and everyone thought it was one of the worst films of the year, Eye of the Beholder. And that's a whole story for another time. But this includes the French cut, which is 4 minutes longer than the U.S. cut at 118 minutes, which is great. There's an audio commentary on here with some film historians that's very, very interesting. And, this is a really, really cool French thriller of the period, done in the French thriller style.
Yeah.
And René Clément is great and just directs the hell out of it. And Charles Bronson gives one of his best on-screen performances. Diane Keaton directed Unstrung Heroes in 1995 when she was nursing a brief directing career. And it's a really good film. And I'm sorry that this didn't get more love. Richard Lagravenese wrote this incredible screenplay. Lagravenese, who of course wrote The Fisher King and many other great movies.
Living Out Loud.
That's right. Gosh, what a good movie that is. Queen Latifah and Holly Hunter. This is a lovely period family story that seems in some ways maybe autobiographical, but it really is sweet. John Turturro and Andy McDowell give such good performances. Michael Richards, of all people, shows up in this pre Seinfeld and gives a really, really good performance. It's just a really, really sweet film and just wonderfully shot. An Innocent Man, one of Peter Yates's later films with Tom Selleck. This is from 1989. Is kind of a Hitchcockian thing about a guy who is framed and sent to prison and has to figure out how to pull his life back together again. It is not it's not. Oh, how would I put this?
Top level Yates.
It's not top level Yates. It's also not like Shawshank. Some people might think it's kind of Shawshanky. It isn't. But Tom Selleck is still great, and he sort of rises to the occasion and does a better job than the material really would necessarily suggest. And then the last one here from the new Kino titles is a film that I love deeply, and I'm so happy this is finally out. There's nothing on it. There's an Andy McDowell interview, and that's it. But this is Green Card, the extraordinarily underrated Peter Weir film that gave Gerard Depardieu a chance to do something in English for a change. And gosh, I love this movie. I really do.
I remember doing the junket for that movie.
I know it's just such a beautiful film, and it's kind of minor Peter Weir, but it's so good in so many ways. It's such a beautiful script, and of course, there was another film with the same story, which is it's about somebody who marries somebody so they can get a green card and over that. And there was a Jean-Pierre Bujold movie made in Canada that had a similar plot made the same year, but this is the one. Green Card is just a beautiful script and features 2 tremendously talented actors and has an absolutely wonderful scene when he's on the piano.
Oh.
Classic. It's one of the best things that Peter Weir's ever directed. Yeah. So, with that, we are done this week, and next week we'll see what happens with this Writers Guild and ATA thing. I don't know where that's going, Tim.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's going to change everything.
It is.